Hi everyone. Today we are going to look at hazard lights. We're going to look at the do's and the don'ts of using them. It seems as though nowadays it's an excuse for doing what you like, and it's not the safest way to do things. Let's have a look. So first of all, why do people put hazards on? Well, I honestly don't know. I think that there's use of hazard lights for people to do whatever they like. They don't really think about what they should be doing and how they are really telling people. They use them to park on yellow lines. They use them to drop the kids off at school, whether it be on yellow lines or even worse, on the yellow zigzags. And people also use them as an excuse for literally doing whatever they want. Sometimes it'll be a bizarre manoeuvre that they're trying to perform. Tell you what, I'll put my hazards on. That will help. And it actually doesn't. It does the opposite. Just for example, if you're going to park in on the left, you're dropping the kids off at this school, don't put your hazards on, just put a left signal on. You are allowed to drop people off on yellow lines. You don't need your hazards. And the problem actually gets worse because people following and people coming up don't actually know what the people with hazard lights on are doing. Use hazard lights as an excuse for doing anything. Therefore, the message that you're getting across to people is exactly the opposite of people don't know what you're doing. So, honestly, just put a left signal on and pull up on the left. And if you're going to drop people off on yellow lines, you're allowed to. It's not an issue. Just do it. I sometimes feel people put hazards on as well, because it's going to mean that the police or traffic wardens aren't going to give you a ticket. Come on, that's absolutely ridiculous. If you're going to park on school markings or park on a bus stop or park on a cycle area or a bus lane, literally, it doesn't matter whether you've got hazards on or not. Whoever's in charge of that particular parking offence, they'll give you the ticket regardless. Makes a difference whether you got hazards on at all. It does cause other problems as well. Just for example, we've got a little incident here where we're approaching a lorry that's parked in on the left, and the lorry for some reason has decided to put hazards on. On the approach to the lorry, you can only see the right signal. So what does that make everyone else from behind think? You may say, well, those cars could have parked in after the lorry had parked, but yeah, they could have, but just don't put your signal on. Everyone can see a lorry. They're not difficult to spot. Why do you need to put hazards on? Do you really think that you need hazards on to say you're an obstruction when you parked on the left? No, you don't. It is a little bit of laziness though. People think that just pressing that one button allows them or gives them the right then to do whatever they like, and it is just laziness. I'm talking about laziness of observation. You need to change what you're doing dependent on who's around and what's happening, and that one sort of like push of a button or one cure fixes all, it doesn't work. Like I've explained, that the hazards don't actually mean one particular thing, so it just causes, honestly, big confusion. People coming up don't know whether you're going to move off, they don't know whether you're going to stay there, they don't know whether you're going to suddenly swing out and then reverse up a path. They haven't got a clue, and you don't need to use them. So when do you need to use them? Well, there's a situation that I haven't got an example of, unfortunately, is slowing down on a motorway. If there's a massive queue up ahead and all the cars are travelling up behind and they're catching you pretty quick, it's always a good idea to use your hazard lights in that situation to warn traffic behind of the obstruction or hazard up ahead. But you could also use them like in this situation, and the driver of this car was obviously having problems keeping his vehicle going, and he's arriving at this roundabout and he correctly puts the hazards on, and this was nice to see, and it allowed me to understand that he's having these problems, and then it allowed me time to safely negotiate and go round. So what about this scenario then? We've got a couple of buses up ahead where they've both got hazards on, but the first one in the queue at the bus stop, it's only visible to cars approaching that you've got a right signal on. You can't see the hazards until you arrive really close. Now, it's one thing that I'm pretty sure that the bus companies actually tell their drivers to do, and I get it that it actually helps the driver behind know that that bus isn't just picking up or dropping off, it's actually stationed there. Okay, it could be on a driver change or something like that, so it's got a number of minutes wait before it's off and in service again. But you bus drivers out there, you could actually help me out on this. Is this something that's taught by bus companies? Because if it is, it's not very thoughtful for other people, because you bus drivers are the only supposed other people apart from emergency services that people need to let out or give way to. And all it does is causes massive amounts of confusion to people approaching. And it's a difficult issue that we have to address with our learners. For me though, it's an added point that I find a little bit of a challenge to go off and get them to understand. So for me it's good because these learners then have added knowledge, but it does honestly show a lack of appreciation for other people on the road by you bus drivers sticking these hazards on and then everyone else thinking that they have to let you out, which the good drivers will do. So is there anything else that could be done by the bus companies? Is there a further light that could be added to the back of buses to show their fellow bus drivers coming up behind that they are waiting there for a while and they're not just dropping off? Well, maybe. But until now, bus drivers, just think about it. If there is someone close up behind you, take your hazards off if you can, because think about everyone else coming up behind is thinking, oh, I need to let this one out. So what should I do if I wish to park? Well, it's simple really. Appreciate people behind and let them know with an indicator. People think that the indicator is a way of telling people you're going to use your steering wheel. I know you're not going to use your steering wheel that much if you're parking, if you're just gliding next to the curb, but honestly you don't have to use it to actually steer. If I was going to park, all you really need to do is literally assess what's going on behind, let people know with a left or a right signal depending on where you're parking, and use your brake lights, and then do your park. If I was having hazard lights on at the very moment, I would then confuse people that maybe I was going to swing out and then reverse onto one of these driveways. And it shouldn't be done like that. So, just to summarise, try not to use your hazard lights as an excuse for doing something maybe illegal. Don't think that parking next to a curb on the left or the right requires hazard lights for you to do it. It doesn't. Try and use your hazard lights in the correct way, just like the example we gave with the Volvo. And remember the one that I didn't show you with the motorway. That's another important time. And above all anything else, try and think of other people. And that's the main reason why I'm forever going on in my videos and in my teaching with my students, to signal to what's required. Don't get into a habit of just signalling. And people signal regardless, and it's a less advanced way of doing things. If you're signalling to exactly what's happened, it means that you've observed properly. Even on your driving test, if you're parking in next to a curb on the left and there's no one around. Don't signal. And that includes pedestrians as well. If there's no one about whatsoever, don't signal. Because the next time you do get asked to be parked in on the left and you see that pedestrian that's walking down the road, or that oncoming car that could be living in this driveway and turning in, and then you do signal that time, your examiner's going to be thinking, yes, that's good. They've seen, they've watched. And that's what driving is all about. Year after year after year, the number one fault for failing driving tests is observations. And I've literally just got an email this morning from the DVSA, and it's exactly the same this last year. So it will never change. It has been for years and it will always be the case. So what I'm always trying to do is get the message across to look. And people who put hazard lights on to do anything or signal regardless, they're not observing properly. Add it to your driving if you can. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope to see you all soon.